The tropical disturbance in the Atlantic with a high likelihood of becoming a tropical storm in the Caribbean early next week. I'll let you know the areas it could impact and where it goes from there. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi everyone, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. It's great to see you on a Friday. Hope you're doing well. Got a jam-packed video for you, friends. Obviously, we're going to get into a deep dive of what's going on with our tropical disturbance with a high likelihood of development as it gets closer to our area early next week. I've got all the newest information. I do want to start this video, though, with what's happening across our area now, and then we'll deep dive into that. Fair? Fair. Okay, let's do that. So back over to what's going on this Friday afternoon, because we have some pretty active weather across a good portion of our area. I want to start in the northwest side of the Caribbean because there's a tropical wave impacting this area. This was that tropical wave that earlier in the week, the Hurricane Center had actually highlighted for potential tropical development. That never happened. We never got a low-level center to develop, but it is a elongated area of healthy showers and storms, and they're really breaking out right now through portions of Cuba, central and the western sides, the Cayman Islands. If you're new to the channel, top center of your screen, that's the live lightning count here at Meteo Mundo. That's how many lightning strikes we've seen in this area in just the past 15 minutes. So there's healthy thunderstorms. This is traversing west into the Yucatan. It's going to be a pretty active late afternoon, early evenings for places like Merida and Cancun and Cozumel, Tulum back down towards Chechemal, then Belize City, San Pedro, all with healthy shower and storm chances as this wave works its way off towards the west, towards Roatan and the northern coastline of Honduras. Storms are developing at the hour across portions of Nicaragua, and they're going to start to ramp up over Costa Rica and Panama as well. So again, this is all pushing west. It's not going to develop. We're not going to wrap up anything in the southwest side of the Gulf of Mexico, but it is going to be a wet weekend for portions of Mexico. Another area that's been very wet today are our friends in the northwest Bahamas, and these showers and storms, they got started pretty early on this Friday. Slow, erratic movement, very healthy rain for portions of Walker's Key, Grand Bahama, Freeport, Lucaya, Bimini, Abaco, Andros, Nassau, New Providence, Eleuthera, portions of Cat Island. What do you say we bring on our live radar data here from Meteo Mundo as well, drop off the satellite data, and you can see again the clusters of storms. They were more prominent earlier in the day. Very slow, erratic movement as well, produce some healthy rainfall totals. And again, they're beginning to kind of dissipate at the hour for us here. And you can see earlier in the day we had some storms over Nassau and Andros, and then back over towards Abaco as well. They're fading a bit. The interesting feature, and I highlighted it yesterday as well, is this very broad spin in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. It's kind of tailing the south side of what was Debbie, but close enough proximity to the northwest Bahamas where it's caused a bit more active weather there the last 48 hours or so. It is a little bit drier in the central and the southeast Bahamas. And of course, this orange area that you see, my friends, is just that development area of that disturbance. And we'll talk more about that in a minute as well. Let's get on over towards Jamaica. Storms are beginning to develop at the hour, the far western sides of the islands, mainly Hanover and Westmoreland parishes, but St. James, St. Elizabeth as well. A couple of good lightning strikes there east of the Cambridge area, north of Santa Cruz. So my friends, if you're viewing from there, let me know. But once again, it is the western side of Jamaica, just with that better rain chance here. I'm going to throw on the temperatures, which you can see, and then the feels like numbers, which is another huge story here. The feels like number in Kingston today hit 114. 110 is 43.3 degrees Celsius. 115 is about 45 to 46. That is stifling heat. That is dangerous heat. And again, we need to get a little bit more rain in the central and the eastern sides of the island, but it's so far the western sides that have had a few more storms develop on this Friday. Again, it's been relatively quiet through portions of the Dominican Republic and Haiti for today. A couple of storms there, mainly near Santo Domingo. They had a nice little passing shower and storm. Again, a little bit of lightning developing with the heat of the day. Once again, if you didn't get any rain, your feels like number well above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It's been a relatively quiet day for our friends in Puerto Rico and the U.S. and British Virgin Islands as well. Now switching over to our visible satellite imagery. Fairly brisk east winds, but not a lot of moisture to play with yet. Better rain chances starting tomorrow for Anguilla and Antigua and Barbuda and St. Bartholomew, St. Martin, Saba, St. Eustatius, St. Kitts and Nevis. Again, pretty darn hot and steamy day. Guadeloupe south, Dominica, Martinique, a passing shower possible. Then we get into better moisture already with that tropical wave. That's St. Lucia south, Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago. These are the areas later on this Friday that will have an opportunity for some rain, especially down towards Trinidad, Tobago. But that moisture is trying to get up towards Barbados as well. So passing showers likely in these areas late on this Friday. Same thing for places like Suriname and Guyana and Venezuela. And we've been pretty much high and dry in the ABC Islands. So that's what it looks like right now on this Friday. And this tropical wave, again, it's not going to develop, but it's over the Lesser Antilles. This is going to push some good rain chances across the Caribbean for the weekend ahead. But now it is time to deep dive into that tropical disturbance. And as we do so, friends, I want to thank all of our loyal subscribers here at Meteo Mundo, and welcome to all of our new subscribers. If you want to do me two quick favors, just like this video and drop in the comment section below where you're viewing from, what the weather has been like. If you have a specific question about the forecast, you can drop in the comment section below. I'm happy to answer that. Thank you for sharing this with your family and friends, and thank you for finding ways to support me here at Meteo Mundo. We'll first start off with our surface map, the location of our tropical waves. The one over the Lesser Antilles, the one impacting the Yucatan as we speak. But this is the one with the high likelihood of development here in the main development region of the Atlantic Basin. That one is the one that's going to be hauling its way into the Lesser Antilles early in the week. So we'll take a look at it and we'll take our time here. First thing I want to do actually is talk about how far away we are. So let me bring on our spatial tool, basically our mapping here. I'm going to draw this out to that center. I think I have to shift the map just a little bit north here. There we go. So from Barbados, which is the farthest east island, to the center of this wave, we're about 1,500 miles. That's roughly 2,400 kilometers away. So we've got some days to watch this, okay? And the Hurricane Center does not have this developing in the short term. That's why we have this line. When you get to the orange polygon, that's where the Hurricane Center thinks it could first develop, starting here and then all the way into the Greater Antilles. But there is the opportunity that this could become a depression or even a tropical storm before it hits the Lesser Antilles. We'll talk more about the potential as far as its strength coming up in just a minute. This is the satellite presentation. What I'm noting is relatively good convection, showers and storms across all four quadrants. When I switch over to the water vapor imagery, the green that you see on this particular product is moisture-laden air. The red is dry air. It is not fighting Saharan dust. It has already developed its own moisture field across all four quadrants, saying it's just a little bit of drier air on the northeast side. But what's more important is that there's moisture out ahead of it, and that's the direction this wave is headed. So, friends, all systems are go. Nothing that I've seen over the last 24 hours would hinder its development. And again, it's only gotten better. Today, from the Hurricane Center, it's a 60% chance. Yesterday, it was a 40% chance. The day before, it was nothing. Tonight, tomorrow, this area should turn red, which means it's a 70% chance of development or higher. Back over to the visible satellite imagery. Of course, we're losing our daylight here, so we're not going to get the full loop, but I do just want to kind of pause it right there just to show you again. Pretty good outflow, especially on the southeastern quadrant here. Looks pretty impressive already in visible satellite imagery. And again, nice little outflow ring on the northwest side as well. So all signs point to, again, we're going to continue to see this wrap up as we get into early next week. So now we're going to deep dive into the models. We'll start off with the GFS model in the short term. Really, the first thing I want to look at is its approach to the Lesser Antilles in places like the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Then we'll deep dive into the extended of the GFS and the European model and the ICON model. There's a lot to talk about. There's so much to talk about. If you don't mind, I'm going to take a quick sip of water. I've talked a lot in these videos, so dealing with a little bit of a dry throat right now. Don't want to get too scratchy. So this is the GFS model here. Of course, this is Friday the 9th. So as we get towards Monday the 12th, and then Tuesday the 13th. That's when we start to see the approach of the system. Now, one note as well is that the Hurricane Center has shifted this development area slightly south to include Barbados and St. Lucia. Still looking for impacts more towards the Leeward Islands in general, but you can see it's a little bit farther south on the GFS than what it was yesterday, okay? And this would be very early on Wednesday morning. Now, what could this become, right? There's an opportunity that by this time we have a tropical depression or maybe a weak tropical storm, and that would be Ernesto, okay? I do want to highlight and make sure our friends in the Lesser Antilles and the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico understand that this is not more than likely going to become a high-end tropical storm or a hurricane by this point in time. It's still going to be in its development phase, but having a depression or a named storm is a possibility as we get into our Tuesday and especially into our Wednesday as this traverses into the northeast side of the Caribbean. But direct impacts for these areas, obviously squally weather. There's already some small craft cautions up in place for portions of the Leeward Islands, and obviously some heavy rain and gusty winds would come along for the ride. Now from here, again, we'll look at some of the more extended models coming up, but I just wanted to kind of show you what this looks like in the short term as it moves through the Lesser Antilles. Again, the time frame would be on Tuesday and then into Wednesday, and we'll talk about where it could be headed from there in just a second. I also want to take a look at the winds, at the gusts, so we're going to take a look at that as well. I'm going to loop that up. Same GFS model, so it's going to be the same locations on the map here, and you can see that even ahead of this, we're going to have some fresh winds. But that's where we start to see the potential for this to develop a low-level center of circulation here on the GFS, right as it kind of sneaks across, of course, on this model run and only this model run, Guadeloupe and Dominica. So let me get back to that area right here. And just to show you, again, what kind of winds that we're talking about. I just want to get that red on that map because that's going to be the highest winds here. So if we query this, we're looking at potential tropical storm force conditions. It's a possibility, okay, that on the GFS model, this teeters on depression, weak tropical storm, as it moves through the northern side of the Lesser Antilles and then heads towards the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico on our Wednesday, okay? So that's the short order. We're going to get back to this in just a second, but now let's get into the full run of this GFS deterministic. So we're just extending the model that I showed you. So here it comes, starting on Monday into Tuesday and Wednesday. Notice it does develop a center of circulation, more than likely a tropical storm south of Puerto Rico. Direct impact over Hispaniola, then redeveloping over the Turks and the Caicos and the Bahamas. This newest run of the GFS deterministic is farther west with direct impacts to the United States East Coast. So one more time, again, we're going to see development in the northeast side of the Caribbean. This takes it right over Hispaniola, so it knocks it down, such a mountainous island, but then reforms it over the Turks and Caicos and into the Bahamas and then towards the United States East Coast. Now, this deterministic model is one of the farthest west outliers of the GFS. So I'm going to show you the ensemble members coming up. So this is one of those that pulls it farther west, again, right over Hispaniola, so it loses its low center of circulation, at least for a brief time, and then it reforms itself over the Bahamas. And we would have to, on this track, of course, keep a very close eye to our friends in portions of the United States East Coast and the seaboard. These are the ensemble members. There's 51 of those on the GFS. So we're going to start to see the signal that it develops. Obviously, we're a little bit more clustered here over the northeast side of the Caribbean and the Greater Antilles in general. But notice that a lot of the GF ensemble members have that recurve earlier, just like yesterday. The deterministic is one of the farthest west outliers. Sure, there's a couple of rogue ones into the Gulf of Mexico, and look, it's so early in things, we don't even have a low level of center circulation right now. We can't discount anything, but the cluster is for a quicker recurve to stay in the open waters of the Atlantic away from the United States East Coast, maybe being Bermuda a little bit more into play. But all of these are still plausible scenarios for us here, especially since we don't have anything developed yet. But again, as of note, the potential to even get a weak tropical storm Ernesto in the Northeast Caribbean near the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico before it would directly be impacted by the mountainous terrain of Hispaniola. Now it's time to take a look at the European model. The deterministic is very close to the GFS. It's slightly farther north, okay? So now the European model doesn't have the direct center of what would be Ernesto over Hispaniola. So now it stays stronger as it gets closer to the Turks and Caicos. But the recurve is faster on the European model. And that's good because this really deepens what could be a hurricane as it moves up the eastern seaboard, hopefully threading the needle between Bermuda and the United States East Coast. But again, this is just one model run. We don't, focus on one, but we want to start taking a look at the averages and what's kind of happening all together. So again, we would have a tropical storm near the U.S. and British Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, sliding north of the Dominican Republic and then east of the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas, and then trying to thread the needle, staying away from Bermuda and the eastern seaboard of the U.S. When we look at the European ensemble members, they do have that recurve scenario more in play. Still, some of the western ones take it directly through the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas and closer to the United States seaboard, but they're also stronger as well, just deeper areas of low pressure, more signals of hurricanes out of the European ensemble about a week from now here. But again, nice little cluster close to the northern side of the Lesser Antilles, Anguilla, and then the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico as well. So again, we have relatively good agreement with the GFS and the European, and even the European has a couple of rogue ensemble members that are still out in the Gulf of Mexico. This is the ICON model, and this is it right here. I'm going to step over to this side of the map, and this is our disturbance. Now, it develops it even quicker, so this would be a weak tropical storm coming through the northern side of the Lesser Antilles. And the icon stops right about here near the Turks and the Caicos. But the biggest thing I wanted to show you out of this is actually the tropical waves coming off the West African coast. If I take myself off camera and you look back down there, do you notice that it develops every tropical wave, the next two, the one in the central Atlantic right there as the first one moves through the Dominican Republic, and then the one coming off the western sides of Africa as well. So look, the icon is saying that, again, the development region in the Atlantic is open for business, and these waves are going to be more aggressively forming here. And again, it's that time of the year, friends. We're getting towards mid-August. That's not going to be surprising. So back over here, I can take the GFS model and go farther out into time, and we'll take a look at this. Now, again, this is going to be the deterministic model, the one that I showed you that scrapes the Carolina coastline. So be prepared for that. Again, it is a western outlier of the ensemble members, but it's a plausible scenario, and we're not going to discount anything right now. So on the GFS, you can see more direct impacts for the Turks and the Caicos and the Bahamas, and then up towards the Carolina coastline of the United States. Again, back down here, so we're going to basically pick it up from where I last stopped it. So Puerto Rico would be influenced by this Tuesday into Wednesday. The Dominican Republic, Wednesday into Thursday. Again, on the GFS, going right over Hispaniola. Mountainous island, a lot of dry air ingestion, so these storms get really knocked down. And look how the GFS just turns it into a pretty sloppy system over the Turks and the Caicos. It gets back into the open waters. The Bahamas, not big enough landmass to really stop it, so it begins to regenerate. Now it hits the Gulf Stream waters off the United States East Coast, and it begins to flourish again, and we can almost see an eye there in a couple of frames. If I go over to the winds, give me just 1 second to do that. If I go over to the winds, and these are going to be sustained winds as well, and we query these. So give me 1 second here. We query these winds in the GFS. You're looking at, again, these are sustained winds. You would be looking at a hurricane here on the GFS. So just as of note that the main GFS model does develop this into a hurricane about 9 days from now, okay? And I can bring this back. Oh, excuse me, actually. Let me try and loop this up real quick, guys. Might take just a second to fully loop up, but that'll probably be a little bit better product to show for us here. Again, what you'll notice on this is that as it gets across Hispaniola, it's obviously going to be knocked down a bit, okay? And you can see it tracking right through. Again, Hispaniola has 11,000 foot peaks. So it's kind of known as a tropical storm killer, right? Bad situation for Hispaniola if it does, because now you're talking about getting direct impacts with some flooding and some landslides and some mudslides, but it does really tear up the center of circulation. But it would not take long here on the GFS for this to get cranked up again. And you can see that our friends, based on, again, the latest GFS in the Turks, the Caicos, and the Bahamas, would have to really be paying attention to this by about a week from now as well. So if we go out to the 16th, and we can see, again, that center of circulation here, and let me query these numbers. Sorry about that. Let's try this one more time. All right. Dear Lord, please cooperate. Thank you. I don't know why it goes away like that. You see that? There it goes. It came back on now. It's really interesting, though. I'll try it one more time. All right. Don't ask me why. But you can see that it's beginning to become a high-end tropical storm, again, right over the northwest side of the Bahamas on the GFS deterministic. And just gets even a little bit stronger as it does so. So we're going to have to monitor the situation. To be clear again, many models have the recurve farther east with not these direct impacts. But I just wanted to show you that for our friends there. Okay? So let's talk about a broad view of this. What are the areas that could be potentially impacted? The Lesser Antilles for sure, the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. I think those are the ones that, based on all the different models, we've got that track pretty narrow in those spots, right? And of course, in the Lesser Antilles, it's the farther north that you go with that better opportunity. Places like Trinidad and Tobago more than likely won't be directly impacted. Dominican Republic and Haiti, and then down the road, places like the Turks and the Caicos and the Bahamas. Could this veer west? And we'd have to talk more about Cuba and Jamaica, absolutely. Could this recurve quicker east? And we'd have to talk more about Bermuda, sure. But these are the areas, based on what I'm seeing right now, that I think will have the biggest chance for direct impacts from this disturbance. And again, by the time it starts to impact these areas, we could have a tropical depression, a tropical storm, and potentially, especially for the Bahamas, maybe even a hurricane. Now, hopefully it's farther east, but that is a plausible scenario at this point in time. Obviously, wherever this is going to go is going to really elevate the surf and sea conditions. We're still going to have fresh easterlies, but for the Lesser Antilles, early in the week, the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, we're going to get some wave heights getting close to 7, 8, 9 feet. Those are those yellows that you see. And again, based on the GFS, which is what this is based off of, this would bring some potential double-digit wave heights to the Turks and the Caicos and the Bahamas. Obviously, the scenario we want is for this to recurve. First of all, the scenario we want is for this thing to develop, okay? We know that. But if it does, we want it to recurve and thread the needle between Bermuda and the United States eastern seaboard. We'll see how it plays out. Let's get back over to the shorter term, because now we're going to get into the island by island forecast as far as rain goes and cover some of the areas that I haven't as of yet. So let me switch back over to our GFS model here. Bring back up the reflectivity. So if you're new, we're going to go over the island by island totals here. Give me just one second. Let's see, today is the 9th. That's fine, we'll start there. And we'll go out to the end of the weekend. There's a lot of things I can do here, and because I've done a lot, it takes me a second to reset these models. So again, we're back to the GFS, okay? So this is the same scenario that you're going to see, but just to pick this up, this is the first tropical wave that's coming through the Lesser Antilles right now. Look at the rain it's going to bring out west. Again, not associated with the disturbance that's going to develop, but this first tropical wave that's just an elongated area of showers and storms. So again, places like Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic and Haiti and Jamaica and the Cayman Islands will all start to see better rain chances Saturday, Sunday, and even portions of Monday as well with this next tropical wave. This will dry out a little bit in the Yucatan and portions of Central America, sans Panama and Costa Rica, still kind of wet down there. And again, that's the approach of our disturbance. But I just wanted to highlight that there could be some very healthy rain, especially in the Windward Islands tomorrow here in the GFS. Let me pull this up. So this is tomorrow, and look at that slug of moisture coming in. This would be just after lunchtime on your Saturday. St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, 25, 50 millimeters of rain. That's 1 to 2 inches. Locally heavier amounts. So again, just a very unstable air mass before the next one comes in with the development chances. And that again just spreads off towards the west. So for our friends in Jamaica, we'll loop this up. This again, and I know some of you said, Rusty, we haven't gotten much rain on the eastern side of the island. This should be more widespread. What you've had lately is you've had just localized storms developing over the island with the heat of the day, okay? This should be more prominent in general, trying to bring a bigger slug of moisture across the area. So I'm more optimistic that places like Kingston, Port Moran, Spanish Town, Old Harbor will get better rain chances. Certainly Haiti and the Dominican Republic will. As that system pulls north, will actually dry out a bit over the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos, at least over the next 3 days until whatever that thing wants to do later next week. Here's your island by island rain chances, friends, for the weekend and on Monday. Start off in the Bahamas, northwest Bahamas, 30% chance for isolated storms to develop with the heat of the day. Central and southeast Bahamas still relatively quiet over the weekend. Slightly higher rain chance for them in the Turks and the Caicos Sunday into Monday. Cuba will still stay with healthy localized storms. Those storms just really seem to develop across the mainland there as we get through the late afternoon hours. Cayman Islands rain chances begin to improve early next week. Belize City, good chance for rain again today. It drops off over the weekend and on Monday. Cancun and Cozumel gets back to an isolated storm chance. Jamaica's rain chances and storms as well just go higher and higher. 40% chance tomorrow, 50 Sunday, 60 on Monday. Dominican Republic, best chance tomorrow, fades a bit Sunday, Monday, ramps right back up Tuesday, Wednesday with that next approach of the disturbance. Same thing for Puerto Rico, higher rain chances to help cool things off. We'll take it. We need to cool things off in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. And then still scattered storms over Sunday, Monday. It's not like it's nothing. It's a 40% chance. Bermuda still relatively quiet. Anguilla, 50% chance tomorrow. Start to bump up the rain chances. Anguilla, Ceiba, St. Martin, St. Eustatius, St. Kitts and Nevis, starting on Monday. And you'll see that across the Lesser Antilles. Now, places like Guadeloupe and Dominica, just by their orientation, slightly further east and slightly farther south, will have a better rain chance. Guadeloupe, Dominica, Martinique overall on Monday with the far western extent of that disturbance. But everyone has a good rain chance here through the weekend and much more elevated on Monday, including St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Barbados, obviously a little bit farther east. 80% chance, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, 50 to 60. Right on through the next 3 days. Going to be relatively wet for Suriname and Guyana. Good chance for rain in Nueva Esparta tomorrow. Then they're drier Sunday, Monday. And just a couple of showers expected over the ABC Islands over the next 3 days. Rainfall totals on the European model. Obviously, again, and I'm going to pull myself back on camera for a second, it's slightly farther north than the GFS. So it takes that heaviest rain, right? Maybe that, and this is in millimeters, I believe. Did I put this one in millimeters today? Nope, this is in inches. So when we're looking at inches here, you notice that there's a bullseye of about 10 to 12 inches of rain, but it's even north and east of the Turks and the Caicos. 10 inches of rain is 25 millimeters. It's actually a very easy conversion, 25 millimeters for each inch. But you notice a lot of the Lesser Antilles and the Greater Antilles, we're looking at 3, 4, 5 inches of rain, 75, 100, 125 millimeters of rain. And again, just depending on the recurve, if it doesn't, that heavier rain would spread across the Turks and Caicos and the southeast Bahamas as well. And still relatively high rainfall totals for Central America. Again, a few inches of rain, 50 to 75 millimeters is there as well as that goes. But potential flood issues will all be dependent on exactly where this disturbance / Ernesto goes and how quickly it will be moving as it does to wrap up and gets a little bit stronger. Friends, I'm going to keep you covered here at Meteo Mundo. You can find us across a lot of social media. We have our handles on all of the major platforms. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook. You have a picture or video you want to send me, myMediaMundo@gmail.com. Again, thank you so much for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing. If you have a specific question about the forecast, you can drop it in the comments section below. Have a great rest of your Friday. I will be back tomorrow with all the newest information for you on that disturbance. We'll track it together. I'll see you then, right here at Meteo Mundo.